Our world is undergoing the most powerful, the most exciting, the most dramatic change ever seen in the history of humanity. We have entered the age of AI and the age of Aquarius simultaneously, and that is no mistake. You know, we human beings, we needed to evolve, we needed to change, we needed to get in the driver's seat of our world so that we could ensure that the benefits of artificial intelligence and all the change going on around us benefit as many of us as possible. Hi, I'm spiritual leader Cynthia L. Elliott, also known as Shaman Isis, and I invite you to join us on our show where we interview incredible authors, change makers, entrepreneurs, tech gurus, all sorts of fabulous people who share their journey, their skills, their beliefs with us to inspire you and the world around you. Please join us for Soul Tech with Shaman Isis and get inspired. Hey, and welcome to Soul Tech with Shaman Isis. I'm your host, Cynthia Elliott, also known as Shaman Isis, and I am super excited about tonight's show. We have a special co-host guest, Mr. Billy Dees himself. Hey, Billy, what's up?
Thank you so much for having me on, and really enjoyed your intro there, the passionate voiceover. That was fantastic. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's new. For those of you who are regular listeners, the show was called Glow Up with Shaman Isis for I guess like a year or so. And we decided to upgrade the name to Soul Tech with Shaman Isis to match with everything that we do here at Shaman Isis and soultechfoundation.org. And so I'm delighted about this. This is the first episode under our official name. And so welcome to those of you who are new. Tonight we've got a special show. Billy and I have done many shows together, particularly on his podcast, the Billy Dees podcast. Congratulations, Billy. It's going on like 10 years, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
He won't say it, but I will. His show generally ranks in the very top, particularly on Good Pods, where it's always up there in the news and marketing category. So
Awesome. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Tonight's show, we are going to be talking the good, the bad, and the ugly of President Trump's 2.0. We'll call it Trump 2.0, his second swing at the presidency. Billy, what do you think about tonight's theme?
Well, it's great. And, in this day and age, how well this is going to be received, I don't know, because you're either on a team or you're against it. That's the way things work now. And when I say I support President Trump, it's not because of any, ideology that I'm trying to advance, or I personally like, him. When I say I support a president, I support their presidency and most of what they're doing. No president, I don't care who they are, does everything perfectly. And in a country of 300 and some odd million people, there is no way that everyone is going to agree with everything that a president does. So it's nice to have a nuanced conversation about this. But like I said, I know from what I get on the show, I have a lot of Trump followers, and when I criticize this Trump, the negative comments always come in, and you can't, like I said, it's very hard to provide nuance these days. So I hope the audience allows for that. This type of discussion is what we need more of, rather than, yay, he's my man, or no, he's the devil. There's nothing in between in today's world. Yeah. So hopefully we can cover that a little bit.
I agree. I dislike the fact that we have gotten to a place where we're either on A team or B team, and some people are very almost violent in their reaction to whatever the team is that you're on that they disagree with. I mean, I know I've lost friendships over the fact that I've been honest about feeling the need to vote for Trump because we needed change so desperately in this country. Yeah. And so I like to be upfront with that, with my audience about that. I really believed that we were in a very dire situation. It's why I wrote my third book, A New American Dream. It was because I was, as a futurist, I was like, oh, we're in trouble. And if we don't do some pretty drastic stuff, we're going to die as a country. And so I felt like this was necessary. But I do believe that it behooves any citizen to look at our leaders and be critical thinkers about the choices that they make, and be able to have open and honest conversation about the things that you think are good, bad, and ugly. And we need, like you just said, we need more of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
your show notes are quite good, so I'm not sure what you want to start with, but there's a lot of meaty stuff here, and she has the official question cards. And
Just for you, Billy. Just for you. I had to go full branding.
You had to go full branding, and it's awesome. And you know what? You could do like the Letterman thing. When you're done with one, you could throw it at the camera, and we could put the sound effect of glass breaking. So there you go.
There you go. Oh, I like that idea. So we're going to start with the good, and some of these are going to be on multiple categories because they have dual results to them. So the first on my list is actually the tariffs. Trump made what was considered a very controversial move to go after a new tariff policy, and he really got a lot of pushback and a lot of people who were very upset about it. However, you know, on the good side of it, it appears that the tariffs have created a bounty of money that we needed desperately as a country. And so, in the good favor, I think it's awesome that we're making the money. Our tariffs needed to be raised for a really long time. I mean, we were just getting suckered by half the globe. And so, you know, it is about time that we started to see that money, especially given that we spend so much money on countries like China's exports, and we weren't seeing that ourselves. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's just like anything else. In moderation, tariffs can be a good thing. And I believe the initial thing of bringing more money in, especially when you consider that a lot of these markets that we were slapping tariffs on are not fair to the United States. So it's one of those deals where, yeah, you can buy our stuff, but we're not bringing any of your stuff in. So in that situation, there was an imbalance that needed to be corrected. But with so many other things, and one of my criticisms of Trump is when he's borderline in a gray area, he has a tendency to turn things up a notch when he faces criticism and makes it even more hardline. And this is where, you know, there's a lot of private entities in the United States who make products that are hard to get within the United States. You know, this is particularly true of the tech world. Semiconductors and things like that are coming offshore. Now, everybody says, well, that should be made to the United States. And yeah, that makes sense. But you have to understand that in particular with technology, places like Taiwan, China, other places have entire marketplaces, entire industries set up by highly skilled workers. And it's just not, oh, well, let's just bring it here. You know, it would take 5 years to get some of the key things made well within the United States. And it's unfortunate, but you know, the pay scale in the United States makes it hard to do that as well. So there's a lot of factors involved. And I think one of the big things that has to be a part of this outlook is the way we regard education, because a 4-year degree has been put up on a pedestal. And, you know, I believe Elon Musk said that, you know, if you're 18 years old and you walk into a bank and you say, I want to start a new business, your chances of getting anything, even a small amount like $10,000, is almost zero. But they'll perfectly fine with letting you get into $100,000 worth of debt to go to a 4-year college. No.
At 19.
Yeah. And so what you have here is a situation where people start, as soon as a baby is born, parents start talking, well, we got to start putting money away for college, you know. So 20 years ago, the kids that are in college now, their parents started saving for their education, let's say, just as an example. And they're going there and they're learning about social studies and media theory and all this other kind of stuff. And the Chinese are training workforces that can actually do stuff. So, you know, I personally would like to have the educational system. If you know, 4-year degrees, people ask all the time, why do colleges charge so much? And the simple answer is
they're greedy.
Well, yeah, the answer is because they can. But it pays it because, oh, you gotta get a job, you know, you gotta do this. I really kind of like the idea of, even if you want to be a doctor, I say after high school, there should be some sort of a 2-year pre-med program.
Hmm.
And then you go into, why does a doctor need to learn social studies
Yeah,
and
yeah,
media theory and waste all his time or her time on that BS?
yeah.
Okay.
That's all
Uh,
that's padding to drag it out. I really think we could have fitted it into 2 years.
yeah. And the same goes, why not go into pre-law right away if that's what you want to get into, or anything else? And I think on that order, electricians, electric engineers, plumbers, all these things should be thought of in the same way. There is
Hmm.
absolutely no reason why a plumber or somebody who everybody in the United States wants a nice house. Okay. So if you really want a nice house, you have to invest in people who know how to do this stuff. I know that AI is going to be a big part of that, but AI can only do so much.
Hmm.
People still have to get out in the field, set that stuff up, make it work. A lot of these printing houses and everything, how they print houses now, that's all done with equipment that people have to know how to run, have to know how to maintain. So we need to rethink how we evaluate our workforce. It would be very hard, very, very hard to find 1 million people in the United States who have the vocational skills to do the kind of work that's being done in China, Taiwan, and elsewhere. It would be very difficult right now, and that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah, I think that's actually a big shift that we're going to see. First of all, I really and we'll get back to the good of Trump's administration in
Yeah,
just a second, his second term. I really believe that kids should not be allowed to go to college, not be allowed, but I think all kids in this country should take 1 year to work
yeah,
after school. I actually love the fact that Israel has people join the military for 2 years because I think it creates a level of discipline in their culture that you don't see here in America.
yeah, sure.
But that aside, that's a whole other conversation. I really think they should spend a year working. And if they can get a job, as a low level employee in the field that they're interested in, I think that would actually save a lot of people getting degrees that they end up being miserable with. Because most of these people end up spending 4, 6, 8 years getting ready for a job that they've never actually worked,
Yeah,
and then they work the job and they're miserable because they were in pursuit of something that they weren't even sure what that the actual experience of that job was. So anyway, yeah. So back to the topic at hand, tariffs. I think it's a big win for Trump because we needed a lot of money, and we also, and beyond that, it wasn't just about the money. It was about saying to the world, America is done being taken advantage of. Especially it was really there during Obama and Biden. And I'm sorry, this is just the truth. I was a Democrat for a really long time,
sure.
and I was very upset with some of the choices that were made by both of those presidents. I mean, it was embarrassing on the lack of strength, the lack of sticking to what they actually committed to and said. And I felt like that made us look weak. And
Yeah,
watching, particularly towards the end of Biden's term, when it became very obvious to everybody that he was really struggling to even function on any level, it was very
yeah,
clear to me for his entire administration that he was not the president of this country. But you could see it in the behavior with the other leaders. And what nobody seems, and I never hear this talked about with Democrats, nobody was acknowledging that if the president of the United States is sitting across from world leaders acting befuddled, what the hell does that say to foreign
yeah,
leaders about where America's at and what they can do to America? Anyway, it's nice to see us going back to them and saying, I'm sorry, but you've had a free for all for the last few decades and we're done. It's time
yeah.
for you to start paying up. But as far as the bad, because we're doing the good, the bad, and the ugly. The bad is that to some people are claiming, and I don't know if this is really true, that the tariffs have actually caused an increase in prices. Have you heard
Yeah,
that?
there's been different studies. Some indicate that it has, and some indicate that it won't. But here again, in the short term, you very seldom see something happen, and this has only been going on now for less than a year. This starts to take its toll as time goes on. I know a lot of small businesses have been impacted. There's been a lot of local businesses here, for example, that sell the different types of rugs and imports, ceramics, all these things that have been imported, and they've had to hike their prices to get by because they just simply cannot just absorb that. Now, you could make the argument that people that buy that kind of stuff, those things aren't necessities. People buy them out of desire. So it has less of an impact because people who have the resources to spend money on fancy china will buy it if they want it. But you don't know. In other cases, there are other things that are more critical to everyday function. And I think the studies are still kind of unclear on exactly where this is going to land. If this continues, then I think we might have some better data over a period of time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It
Mm.
is. It's been interesting to watch. It's such a huge shift. So next on our list is near zero illegal crossings since Trump took office, which is
Yeah,
just goes to show you that, that whole back and forth. I mean, we talked about this recently when we did an episode of Billy Dees podcast, your
yeah,
show. Um, the border turned into a political football,
absolutely.
and now that there's zero, it's interesting that you don't hear anything about the border now because there's almost zero crossing, so the football's gone cold.
Yes. This was, we talked. This really started to become an issue during the Reagan administration, and he wanted to do something about it then. And it's become a political issue that both sides have manipulated since Reagan.
Hmm.
Bush, for example, let a lot of border crossings happen, and one of his critics was Obama when Obama started running. And with the positions were entirely flip flop then. It was Obama who was saying you can't have a controlled society when you got people coming in and you don't know who they are, what their intentions are, which he was correct. Okay.
Right.
So we have the situation now where, the last 5 years was unchecked flooding across the border. And I quote Senator Kennedy on this from Louisiana. He made the statement that you lock your doors at night, not because you hate the world, but you don't want anybody coming in until you know who they are. And that's
Yeah.
the common sense attitude that has been lost in all this. Left leaning individuals will make no distinction between illegal and legal immigration. They just say conservatives and right wingers are against, they hate immigrants. And they just make no distinction at all that it's a security issue, no matter who is coming across unchecked, that they shouldn't be coming across unchecked. And I've said this, I'll throw this out there. I don't want to get the conversation off track, but I think not only have a criminal element been allowed into the country, but even the FBI acknowledges that there could be some really bad
Oh yeah.
actors in the country right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
There are. I'm telling you, it just isn't intuitive. There are some really bad people in this country, and they were allowed in. Like it actually on this how and I have to have to bring this up because this is one of the things that absolutely has just astonished me. Like I have been around a long time. I've seen it all. I know how extreme people can get in their beliefs. The behavior around allowing people into this country without knowing who they are, looking into who they are, and being able to track who they are. And the behavior, because on the list of the good and the bad is both deportation. So illegal immigration, and now mass deportations, which is both good and bad depending on your perspective. But it's good that we are finally deporting them. It astonishes me that we're even having a conversation about this being something that's bad. And it's also on the bad list because there's been so much negative publicity around it. And
yes,
the thing that astonishes me is this inability to understand that you cannot allow people into this country that we know nothing about and we have not had a chance to look into them. And when we finally do get a chance to look into them or we catch them, we find out that they're murderers and they're on the run from their own country, or they get arrested and discovered because they raped a child, which is actually, I mean, I pulled a list of what's happened just in the last year, and I was
sure,
absolutely stunned at the horrific crimes that have actually happened because of people who are in this country illegally, and they hate this country. They don't want to assimilate. They're here
yeah,
because they see it as a free for all, which apparently, based on all the money we're finding, has been stolen and the fraud. That's true.
yeah,
But the inability for people who are pro-immigration to have a conversation about why it's not okay to be in this country and be untraceable. Like people are committing crimes, we can't even find them.
hmm
We don't even know who they are, and people seem to be just okay with that, and to
Yeah,
try to have a conversation. There's an inability to have a critical conversation, and I cannot figure out what that is about. Like,
yeah,
how do you even justify that, just on any level?
yeah.
It's not about immigration, it's about something really serious. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you have a lot of people now that are brainwashed. I've said before, we've had a disintegration of traditional news when news was news. It wasn't news you can use or news you can like. And, this is kind of one of those situations. I'm not sure which one feeds the other, but it's very hard to maintain a news program now with ratings unless you take a side. And if you try to do like an old fashioned newscast with some, nerd on the with dark room glasses and a pocket protector, just reading a bunch of facts, people aren't going to listen to that. So I'm not sure how it became so that we have people now that are in their own bubbles, and you have people that are fully convinced that ICE is the Gestapo, that Republicans and Trump are Nazis, and on down the line, and they are fully entrenched in this belief.
Oh,
Fully,
yeah.
I mean, they're
To the
in it.
point
They're
where
invested in it.
if you bring up Obama, this is the thing that this is where it gets to me, like, I feel like I'm having a conversation with somebody who's literally brainless. Obama deported more people ever.
Yeah.
He grew the size of ICE more than any president ever since I think it was Bush, when it was I believe it was founded under Bush. But Obama deported millions of immigrants, and 56 immigrants died. Illegal immigrants
Mhm.
died during that process. And then when you bring that up, when they want to talk about Renee Good, it's like, well, 56 died under all sorts of circumstances with Obama. And yet they just, it's like, it reminds me so much of dealing with a narcissist when you have you have a good point and you bring it up to them and they just pretend like you didn't speak.
Yeah. Well, here again, the polarization was getting started in the early 2000s for sure.
Mhm.
But when Obama took office, which was 2008, 2009, when he was actually brought in, the social media did not have the power that it does now. It existed. I had a Twitter account probably about that time, but the Facebook and all that existed. But it has the people were not entrenched in bubbles like they are now. And what you have now is people that don't watch news at all, real news of any kind, whether it's biased or not. They get all their information from their social media feeds, and the algorithm feeds what they already believe. Things that click on and
Mhm.
react positively to is where they stay. And I don't think these people are some of these people that think. Well, first of all, I always make a little joke. If you can't tell me who the Axis powers were and the Allied powers were during World War II, I don't want to hear any lectures about Hitler. And most people don't know
Right.
basic history. They don't know the Battle of the Bulge and anything. But they're gonna tell me about Hitler. All they know is Hitler bad. That's what they know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I don't think they've ever seen the videos and the footage, and yeah.
yeah, and the other thing is, getting back to this, they don't realize that some of these bad people that are in this country, it is their dream to have some sort of a horrible detonation, whether it be biological or low grade nuclear in this country. That is their dream.
Mhm.
And a lot of them would love to go out in that ball of fury. That would be their ultimate desire is to martyrdom themselves in a nuclear explosion, not brought in by missiles, but walked right across the border. And the only saving grace that we have with this is that the knowledge of how a nuclear reaction is done, the genie's out of the bottle. There's no putting it back in. Okay, that knowledge is out there, and it's not as exclusive as it was during the 1950s. However, getting all the componentry, especially when it comes to the devices that set off the reaction on all these things, there's only so many sources for that in the world, and the intelligence agencies around the world do a pretty good job of when stuff starts accumulating somewhere. you know,
Right?
we better check this out. Where's this stuff going? But it's not impossible. And there's a lot of, especially from the old Soviet Union and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that's unaccounted for.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, that's not spoken about too much, but a lot of people don't know where that stuff is. So the potential for something like that is real, and I would say
Mhm.
it's more of a threat than an incoming missile. We're always afraid of World War III, and we think about this giant missile coming in. But quite frankly, I'm more concerned about a lone wolf going out there and blowing himself up in the back of a van, and just enough to throw radiation through an entire city.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, and don't kid yourself. Those people who want to do that are already here.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you don't even it's crazy because, when you used to say things like that, there wasn't really a lot of evidence around, but all you need to read is
Yeah.
on social media for a little bit, and you'll see videos of people who are in this country illegally and legally. Some of them have become citizens, some of them are politicians, and they absolutely hate this effing country, and they want horrible things to happen to, particularly to white people, which is I'm not saying
Yeah.
to upset people. The fact
Yeah.
is, the white hatred is bizarre. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so strange to me at this point. The delusional behavior. It's like, I don't know. It's difficult to hear. I honestly, there's parts of me that really almost wishes I was the person I was 10 years ago, or actually I'd say before 9/11, honestly, when I didn't know so much and see so
Hmm.
much, because it's difficult to maintain, to be a carrier of love and a spiritual leader and see just how much evil it has become obvious. But I guess, it was always that way. It was just hidden. And
Hmm.
we were all in our nice little bubble with our TVs telling us what to think because they were scripted by the powers that be.
Yeah.
Anyway. Next on our list of the good, which I guess depending on which end of the stick you're on, you might think it's
Yeah.
bad, is Doge. The government efficiency cuts, which I was on the one hand thrilled, but I have to tell you, part of me has been getting kind of pissed off
Yeah.
for all year. I got to a point where I couldn't hear it anymore because I was like, if I hear about one more person, like the $700 million found in suitcases in the airport in Minnesota or Minneapolis,
Hmm.
whatever it was. um, uh, my sister, when she got sick with cancer years ago, it was a cancer she got from being a human trafficking victim. I could not get her help from the government agencies, particularly the one that's supposed to take care of you when you're dying.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get her help, like, so that she could have the best, better health care and a proper medicine and a place to stay and all that stuff, just the basics, really. And the woman told me that I kept saying, why it has been 6 months and she doesn't have that much long to live. And she told me that they were waiting for her to die because they didn't want to take on the debt. And
Yeah.
so when you've lived through that, and I watched my mother seek help and be turned down, and I myself at times in my life when I was, as a kid who grew up in the orphanage and foster care system, I needed help. At times I've repeatedly been turned down when I was growing up or put into horrible situations. And
Hmm.
then to grow up in the country and find out that you can be an illegal immigrant and break laws to get in here and somehow make millions of dollars through daycares and things like that. Like
Yeah.
it was difficult. So anyway, I had to share that because I think sometimes people forget that especially they make assumptions like as a white person as though I would, like every white person gets some like platform of abundance to live off of, and that's just simply not the case. I know many African Americans who struggle, but I knew many white people who struggle too and couldn't get
Hmm.
support. But apparently, if you're supporting the Democrat Party and you want a few $1 billion, it's a free for all. So, what are your
Sure.
thoughts on Doge?
Well, here again, in theory, I liked a lot of what was found. Absolutely. Who couldn't? The amount of waste and fraud. A lot of times we use the phrase waste when it comes to government, but what it really is fraud.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of fraud going on. What I didn't like, it was implemented, I think, a little too quickly in some cases. There were a lot of people who were, very legitimate services to the community, which were impacted. This impacts various things in terms of social services, mental health services across the country. There were a lot of veterans who were impacted by some of the cuts, and not know it necessarily directly, but there's a lot of funding. If you know how funding works with the federal government, it's obviously coming from the federal government to the different states, but it's often piggybacked on different state functions. So there were a lot of state services and things like that who were held up by these audits because they wanted to make sure that these things weren't being, you know, being misused. And in the process, there were a lot of people who needed those funds that didn't get them. So you have to be very careful how you implement these things. And so all in all, yes, I like the idea of auditing the federal government. I think the federal government has a lot of quote unquote waste, which is actually fraud. And how all these millions were lost, let's say with these daycare centers, is a perfect example of that. You know, if I want to go to the federal government for anything, I'm going to have to, you know, cut myself open and give my DNA and this and that and the other thing, and then or they turn around and give away these billions of dollars thoroughly unchecked.
Oh yeah, Stacey
Um,
Abrams getting $2 billion.
yeah.
What the f?
Yes. Yeah.
Come
And
on, come on. I mean, come on.
yeah.
Astonishing. The whole Doge thing, like I just kept I was like I had to keep meditating. I was like, gotta meditate, get this anger out of you
Yeah.
because it was astonishing. I knew it would be bad. I did not know that it was going to be nearly as shameless. I mean, shameless.
Yeah.
I know that if we were allowed to actually finish looking into all that money, we would have actually been able to find many, many trails that led back to Washington and people making a lot of money who somehow make 150 grand a year, but are worth like $30 million.
Yeah, they're worth like a ton of money. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you too, I'm all for defense spending, or as they say, war spending now. And originally it was the Department of War. Yeah, they changed it to defense to make it a little bit more uh, public relations friendly. But I'm all for strong defense. I like the United States
Yeah, me too.
having very powerful weapons. However,
Yes.
this is a big however. I want it spent the right way. You know, a lot of times these things become social work programs. You know, just like the tanks that were built a couple of years ago when the Pentagon said they didn't want them, they were outdated. But they went through anyway because somebody in Congress somewhere had a pack of voters that would impact, so it got pushed through. And the other thing is, I'm very alarmed, I should say, that the Chinese have these hypersonic missiles now, and these hypersonic missiles, but the Pentagon pretty much has admitted are unstoppable. Because especially if they're fired at close range, because they come so fast. By the time you're aware they're on their way, they're there.
Mhm.
And we're behind on that technology. And how is that possible? When you consider the hundreds of billions of dollars that this country spends on defense, what in the hell are they doing with it?
Oh, I think part of the problem, and we talk about efficiency, and one of the reasons that Doge, and you got to give Musk a lot of credit. I think he was given an incredibly difficult time with
Mhm.
what he was trying to do, and he was moving at a pace that I like because that's the pace I move at. I'm very decisive, and if I see something that's wrong, it's done. Let's cut it. Like I got it, but for a lot of people, it was too dizzying and too much speed. And I'm sure there were some mistakes made. That happens when you're getting going fast. But our government has been allowed to become lazy and slow and spendthrift, and a lot, particularly, I'm a huge fan of defense, a huge fan of military, but the military industrial complex had become lazy and stupid, and some of the bigger defense contractors were doing some sloppy work, as evidenced by the inability for almost anybody to compete, except for Boeing, to be able to compete with SpaceX. Which on another note, I'm so psyched. We're going back to the moon
That's
soon. Go
great.
NASA, go NASA. Woo, woo, woo. But yeah, they were allowed to get sloppy and lazy and on I don't know whose timeline they were on. Like for me, I've always functioned in any effort to get things done as quickly, efficiently, and intelligently as possible. That does not seem to be the case for a lot of our government agencies. I mean, if you've ever gone to a DMV, it's
Mhm.
like a microcosm of what goes on with these things. And on top of that, because they were allowed to just, I think it started, in the 80s with the excess and the Cold War. And then people just, they got used to the money, they got used to the spending, they got used to the high life of the corporation. And it just, and they stopped evolving, and they stopped operating on a must be ahead of everyone else basis, and that's coming back to bite us a little bit. But
Yeah.
we're badasses. I have faith.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I'm a firm believer in the space program as well. I know a lot of people criticize that. Why are we going to space? Well, the fact of the matter is if you're listening to this on a mobile device, the microprocessors, the GPS, all that stuff came from the space program, and that's just the beginning. There's so many medical breakthroughs that have gone through, whether it be bone density, cell structure, all that stuff was done, in the interest of space. Fire retardant materials, how to extinguish fires, aerodynamics, weather prediction. Like I said, microprocessors. I could go on and on with this. All of this stuff that makes life better here on Earth helps our economy, helps your health in terms of how the body works, all that stuff. We've gotten dividends from space exploration that NASA, in my opinion, is probably the most worthwhile program that government has ever had
I
in terms of what they.
100% agree with you,
Yeah,
Billy. Like, I've been a huge fan for decades. I was very fortunate to get the chance to work with people at the space program, particularly Johnson Space Center, because of a client that was doing work with them. And it was one of the most fun aspects of my job for years.
yeah,
And I'm aware of the research and very supportive, but I really think they're the greatest thing that this country has had to offer the world, in terms of outside of, helping end
hmm,
World War II and things like that that we've done and helped rescue, many countries and peoples throughout our history. But it's our space program and NASA in particular it's the greatest pride that I think we have. It's just extraordinary the work that they do.
yeah. So I'm all for that as long as it's. And here again, NASA's budget is an infinitesimal fraction of the overall budget, and almost nothing in comparison with what defense gets. And
Hmm.
here again, getting back to defense, I was very angry during the Iraq War, hearing about soldiers who were having their parents send them bulletproof vests,
Oh, I
having their
know.
parents send them bullets. This is absolutely insane. It
Yeah, I
is
know. I
absolutely
know.
insane. If we can't give the soldiers on the ground, the very brave men and women on the ground, the materials they need, then if I was president of the United States, ain't one more bomber being bought. Everything freezes right now until the ground soldiers have everything they need, including the health care for when they come back with
Oh,
either with a physical injury or PTSD or whatever it is they need. They should
mhm.
have to stand on their head and go through a bunch of red tape to get the help that they need.
Yeah, our
Um,
soldiers should have the finest care when they return. That was the one time with Doge that I got really pissed off when
yeah,
they were cutting and slashing, particularly things like mental health, and people suddenly couldn't get an appointment. And I was like, no, 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 no. Now you can move on all sorts of other things, but if it's going to touch someone's health care, you need to
yeah,
go a little bit slower. Save that till you guys have gotten your feet wet. And we're a couple months in. I remember it was like happening so fast. This was just a few weeks into Trump taking over. But on a separate note, in terms of good and bad, I remember when they were trying to implement Obamacare, and I was getting angry because I was trying to explain to people, how do you think this is going to actually work? We have had the VA for years under the government auspice of the government, and we've screwed it up completely, and it's a hot mess, and they get treated like garbage, and they have to wait
hmm,
forever. And like, if you think we can't run the VA, but we're somehow going to run healthcare for every American, you're insane. Like, I was really upset about it, and so I'm happy to see that Trump, in the good category, will hold off on criticizing something that we don't know, but his great healthcare plan, where Americans will get to choose, and the prices will come down. I mean, it's about time that we're not insurance world's bitch.
yeah. Well, it's insurance medical insurance. I'll say this, and because we could do a whole program about this, but the concept of insurance really doesn't
Mm.
belong in healthcare.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's it's
insurance
it's
is a backup plan,
it's
and
scamming.
it works for car insurance because if you let's say we want to start our own insurance, and there's 100 of us, and we each put a small amount into a big pot, and that's predicated on the notion that of 100 people, probably none of us, maybe one or two of us, will have an accident, and if it does happen, there's money to pay for it. And if we go into the next year, whatever funds are left over, we can retain those and add to it again. And as an insurance company, that's where your profitability comes in. Now, the reason that doesn't work with healthcare is it's guaranteed everybody is going to need it. Even if it's preventative healthcare, everyone is going to get sick or injured during the course of their life. There's absolutely no avoiding it. So, what this comes down to then is you have to change the idea of a backup plan, because there is no backup plan. We don't call it retirement insurance. If you live long enough to retire, you're going to need a retirement plan.
Yeah.
And we really need to start thinking about health as a health plan for everyone. And me personally, I kind of like the idea, and this would just be my idea, about where the quote unquote health insurance companies get bogged down is with getting nickel and dimed. Everybody turns everything into their insurance all the time, trying to get it through. Me personally, I would kind of like the government to have a insurance for catastrophic care. So if you get a heart disease or you get cancer, you need chemo, you are not devastated by that diagnosis financially.
Yeah.
Then I would let the private sector take care of the rest. Let the private sector take care of dental and vision and do whatever you want to do with that stuff. And if you want insurance for your doctor visits and everything, and see, most people are probably like me. If I get a sore throat and I have to go to the doctor and let's say it's $100 for the doctor visit or whatever it is, I'm not particularly happy about it. But that's not the type of thing that keeps me up at night. What keeps me up at night is having a catastrophic diagnosis, missing work, having, $100,000 medical bill. That's the type of thing that scares people. And I think that's the type of thing that we need to concentrate on. If we're going to somehow have universal care, I would want it to be for catastrophic care, and let the private sector take care of the rest.
It really shocks, excuse me, it really shocks people from other countries when they find out that Americans end up filing for bankruptcy because they got sick.
Yeah.
I was in Europe like 15 years ago, something like that, 10 or 15 years ago, and I had to go to the hospital, and it was like a real hospital. Long story short, they thanked me and let me go, and I was like, well, were you going to send the bill to me? And they were like, there's no charge. And I was like, I just went to a hospital and spent the night, and you're not asking me for my passport or my driver's license or my credit card or my home address in the States. So you can bill, like, what? Anyway, hopefully we'll get there someday. Last on our list, Billy, is the last on our list is the ugly. And I think we'll just go with the Qatar luxury jet. Influence peddling. That's something Trump's been accused of. What were your thoughts on the jet?
If he takes the jet for personal use after his term is over, I actually don't have a problem with that. If he takes the jet, and I've heard talk of it being put into a museum or something like that, turned back over to the United States government for use, that's fine too. I don't believe it's realistic to believe that jet could ever be used for Air Force One.
I agree.
If you know the technology that is in Air Force One, it is unbelievable. Okay, that jet is not just an ordinary 747. That thing will do amazing things in terms of the thrust, the speed, the maneuvering. It can fire missiles, even though they deny it, but it can. And the technology that's in that jet in terms of navigation and how long it can stay in the air and all that stuff is just absolutely incredible. And a lot of people don't know this, but there's another 747 that is even more radical. It's called the Doomsday plane.
Yeah, they saw that recently. I think it was in LA.
Yeah, and the technology that's in every inch of that plane is beyond imagination in terms of how it can withstand radiation and nuclear shock waves and all these other kind of things. And to put that plane that came, that was a gift, they would practically have to completely disassemble it to make sure that there's nothing in there.
That's what I thought too. I was like, how do you know there's not some kind of device in that? I mean, like, they're so small now.
They would practically have to disassemble it. They would have to hit it with all their best technology in terms of picking up radio signals and everything else, and it still would not have the capability that the Air Force One has. So I think that's very unrealistic, but it makes for a good talking point and gets the liberals all upset.
Oh, I know. Well, I have to say, Trump is doing exactly what I hoped he would do. I mean, I knew after everything they put him through, which is a whole other episode.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
it was shocking to me what was going on for years there, what was allowed to happen, and the excuse making around the behavior. He's done an excellent job. If you don't, sorry if you're one of my listeners and you don't like Trump. I was deeply concerned that the country was going to really crash out. We were definitely toppling that way, and if
Yeah.
the Democrats had had their way, as with all the billions and billions being stolen by Democrat voters and supporters and the illegals that they apparently love so much,
Mhm.
we were headed towards a disaster. We really were, and it has been wonderful to see Trump step in and just go gangbusters. He's got more done in 1 year than I'm sure Biden ever got done in the
Oh,
entire
absolutely.
time he was in the White
Yeah.
House, and that includes vice president and president. I mean, I just found him to be completely ineffective. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the coming years. I mean, if he's already done this much just in the first year, I think he's going to really help put the country back on good footing, and hand it over to most likely JD Vance, who I think would, I believe, and I didn't really know what to think of him at first, but I think he would actually make a really wonderful president.
Yeah. I've been impressed by JD Vance, but I want to warn your listeners and everybody out there not to take anything for granted. A lot can happen in 2 or 3
Oh
years.
yeah.
That's an eternity in terms of politics. I think AOC is a potential if she
Oh
if
God, please
if
don't
they
say
moved her
that woman's name on my
if they
show.
moved her towards the center, if they moved her towards the center over the next couple of years, and I'm telling you, she's got the look.
Can I just tell you, I don't care about her look. I find her stupid. Like
Yeah,
the things that she
it don't
supports
matter.
and backs and says are obscene to me. And it's like if you took her appearance away, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And that
Right.
as a woman pisses me off.
Yeah. Well, I'm just being honest with you here.
Oh, no, I'm not
From a
criticizing
marketing
you. You're being
standpoint,
honest, and I agree. I've heard the talk too, and I'm like, she's a fucking idiot. Excuse my
if you
French.
put some spit and polish on her, moved her more towards the center, give her some moderate talking points, and she has the look. In 2 years, you could be looking at a formidable candidate. And that's just that. It don't matter whether you agree with me or not. Oh, that'll never happen. I'm telling you, they said the same thing about someone. It would never happen
I
with
mean, look at
Clinton.
Kamala Harris. Come on.
Kamala
Come
Harris, same
on.
thing.
Like the fact that she was even vice president
Yeah.
and let's top that one. I was thinking about this recently. It was like Tim Walz was almost the vice president,
Oh
which
yeah.
which
There's
meant he
already
was
yeah
second in line for
yeah
president.
yeah
How the hell does that even happen?
yeah
Come on.
yeah. Don't.
Anyway, I can't stand AOC because I think she's a shameless fame whore.
Mhm.
Sorry, I know some people don't. If you don't are familiar with me, I'm the spiritual leader who cusses like a sailor because I believe in spirituality is about self-actualization and breath and life and being in mind, body, and soul harmony. Doesn't mean you can't be colorful and spicy. And I think she's an embarrassment as a woman. I'm embarrassed by her and Ilhan Omar, who's
Oh
another
yeah.
idiot, a
No,
disgusting idiot
she's
who's
worse than
pissing
an
all
idiot.
over the flag right now.
She's worse than an idiot. She is a bad figure.
She's a terrorist.
Yeah. Getting back to AOC, if you get her in the middle and you give her some moderate talking points, and if the economy starts to falter in the next couple of years, I'm telling you, she could be a candidate. She could be a
Yeah.
candidate, and don't count her out. If you're dismissing what
Oh
I
no, I
say,
I know
I
that
don't
the
mean you.
Democrats are really
Yeah,
big on her.
yeah.
It fascinates me because it's like Kamala Harris. Like watching her run for president, I was like, this is going to be interesting because she's an idiot who can't string two sentences together, is constantly slurring. But apparently, the Democrats think she's the best thing since fried rice. And then you see all these celebrities trotting out to talk about how, and I see this all the time on social media. Even today, people will be like, and if Kamala if you'd voted for Kamala, and it's like,
Oh, geez.
really? Are we still
Yeah.
having that conversation?
Yes, we are. And you know what? Even Gavin Newsom, quite frankly, the idea that guy could become president, it's real because his voters, the people that support that type of individual, don't care.
He's an idiot.
They don't
No, they're
care.
all. Is there anybody in the Democratic Party that's left in the Democratic Party that's not? an idiot that supports
You know,
bizarre ideals that are destructive to the country? Because I
I
think
don't know.
they're the worst thing I've seen in my lifetime on this
That's the only
planet.
thing that's going to hold them back. If the economy holds and if for the most part things stay the way they are the next couple of years, chances are, I think the Republicans, because of the fact that the Democrats embrace radicalism, they embrace the absolute worst that the party has to offer. If there is a concerted effort by Democrats to embrace more moderate ideals, more common sense ideals, then I think they could give the Republicans, a pretty good run in 2028. But as it stands, they just the more radical, the more goofball things say, like the ocean is boiling. Okay, that gets embraced by Democrats. There is no nuance to anything. There's no nuance to ICE. There's no nuance to immigration. Everything should just be wide open, and they're almost anarchists. They don't want any police presence, anything. As long as that continues, I don't see them putting a good campaign together. But don't dismiss the fact that they could make a good move from a marketing standpoint to create a moderate candidate, a young, light on their feet candidate, whether that's Gavin Newsom or AOC or somebody else. They need another Barack Obama. They need another young Bill Clinton. That type of figure could do well in 2028. Don't dismiss the fact that it could happen.
Wow, words from Billy Dees. So Billy, if people wanted to find you or find out more about you, what would they do to track you down?
Well, you can just Google Billy Dees and I come right up. The Billy Dees podcast in its current form is now pretty much over 10 years old. So we have a long history on all the major podcast platforms. We've been on them all for a very long time. For whatever reason, the growth of that podcast in the last 18 months has really, really risen. So we're very easy to find. As far as social media goes, I'm on most of them, although I have to say the old Twitter, which is now X, at Billy Dees, that's kind of like my social media home. Twitter or X is very trending. It's very real time. News happens on X as much as it is reflected there, and that just works really well for podcasters. So thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you, Billy, for coming and being on Soul Tech with Shaman Isis. It was an awesome conversation, as always, with you. If you are not already subscribed to Soul Tech with Shaman Isis, hit that subscribe button and go check us out on we're on all the major platforms. So you can stream us in your car or watch us on YouTube when you're getting work done. All sorts of, we cover everything from wellness to AI to entrepreneurship, business, health. So go check out all the past episodes. And if you want to learn more about me and my books, and of course, stay on top of all my breaking news and get invitations to good things, then go check out shamanisis.com. And of course, you can find me on all the social media platforms, which are all linked on my website. But if you just Google Shaman Isis, you'll find me or Cynthia Elliott. So go check it out and support the show and share it with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon enough with another episode of Soul Tech with Shaman Isis. Bye.